After an Italian interrupting the Spanish wind pattern last time out in Misano, back here on Spanish soil, expectations were firmly with the local boys. Now in Spain, you'd always expect sunshine and a passionate crowd. Now we did get one of those, the other we didn't get, and that was the cause of one of the craziest race weekends we've had all season. Welcome to After the Flag from Aragon.
Not the case, because I didn't need to train any.
Well, the first time MotoGP came to Aragon, both factory Ducatis were on the podium. Now, those were different bikes and different riders, but we thought we'd stay with the Ducati theme and catch up with Cal Crutchlow. Cal, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem, thanks.
Cal, I think we need to talk about it. It's been a slightly difficult year for you here in Ducati, but can you see at least the last part of the season improving?
I hope so, because at the moment, nothing seems to be improving. So, yeah, there's no reason why we can't change it so 2014 is the same as 2010. Both Ducatis on the podium here. I think it's a little bit optimistic, but you have to think positive. And no, obviously, we all know it's been a difficult season for me in Ducati anyway. But yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the last 5 races together. We're always giving 100%, and hopefully we can come out of the season with the best results that I will have had at Ducati. That's the aim, is to keep improving and continuing to improve with the bike and try my best.
Obviously now you are being positive, but I do see you after the sessions most days, and you're quite a self-critical person, I think. What's the most difficult part to deal with when you're having a slightly bad season? Is it more you and the team kind of being disappointed, or outside pressure, maybe outside criticism?
No, obviously to take criticism is part of the job. I race a motorcycle for a living. There's a lot of people that apparently can do it a lot better.
From their homes, from their sofas?
Yeah. As you know.
Yeah.
But listen, I'm trying my best, and if I knew how to go faster, I would be going faster. It's as simple as that. I'm just obviously not comfortable at the moment with the bike, but we know the bike is competitive enough, because Andrea Dovizioso and Iannone are doing a fantastic job, and all credit to them for that, because they've made a great jump from last year. But I think that's half of the point. I think if we would have stayed for the second year, maybe we could have made that jump as well, because last year they were only getting the same results as what I'm getting now as such. So yeah, it was obviously that's not going to be the case. But yeah, obviously I would just keep trying with my guys to the end of the season. It's difficult to take after being competitive, but I'd rather take the self-criticism myself and take it on board, and see if we can improve from that.
That decision though to move on, I think it's still a bit of a grey zone. Do you feel that it was more you saying, look, it's just not working, I've got to go, or was it more Ducati saying, look, Cal, we don't think this is quite right?
Well, first and foremost, Ducati had no option. It was my choice.
Mm-hmm.
It was my choice to leave or stay. So yeah, they couldn't ask me to leave because I already had a contract. So yeah, the decision was solely mine. I thought it was best for me and Ducati, and we came to a good friendly agreement to terminate the contract. When I leave at the end of the season, I won't be leaving on bad terms. They've got 2 great riders for the next 2 years with Iannone and with Dovi, that will give them 100%, and 2 Italian riders in an Italian team. I think it'll work out for them great, and I really hope it does, because Ducati for the last 3 or 4 years have deserved to be at the front with the amount of effort they put in. I believe they deserve to be at the front every race. There's no shadow of a doubt I've never ridden for a harder working team. So yeah, the decision was mine, but I had a great offer and a great deal to go to, a great team to go to. So I took the decision to move, and I think that it will make my longevity in the sport even longer, because I had a lot of things to weigh up and sum up, and the main one was that the 2 riders that Ducati have got 2-year deals. So if I went and won the championship for Ducati next year, where would I ride? It wouldn't be in the factory team. So I took that decision, along with a lot of other things rolled into one, is why I chose to leave. But it's not that's no reflection on the guys that are working for me now, because they're working 100% with with the package that we've got.
One thing, I've got time for one more question, Cal. Changing subject a little bit. We know you're a very keen cyclist. I think you do a lot of sport. Do you think, especially looking at the younger guys maybe coming up that'll see you guys as examples, do you feel that in MotoGP you need this level of fitness which you've got? Or is it more of a mental stress relief for you doing all this cycling?
I think for me, I've always trained that way. I've always cycled. I've always trained too hard, really. I train way too hard than what I need to really to ride the motorbike.
But why? Is that just because it makes
more
you
mental,
feel good?
it makes me feel better. I think this year's probably been the worst because I take my bad results out on my training, which is not the case because I didn't need to train any harder. But I think the young kids can take a leaf out of a lot of the guys' books in MotoGP. But then I also look at some of the guys in MotoGP and know that they don't train. I know a lot of the guys and some of the guys at the front, they can't run more than 15-20 minutes, but when they put their visor down they're able to do lap upon lap at 190 beats heart rate per minute.
So just
with adrenaline
working.
with how talented they are. A lot of guys have to work at things a lot harder, and I feel that's what I have to do. I have to train harder than them guys to be able to compete. I wish I could just not do anything sometimes and just close the visor, but no, cycling's a big passion of mine. But I've always thought what I wanted to do at the end of my career, so I don't know, 5-10 years time, and I think it would be to be taking some of these young riders and teaching them how to train properly, because really they've got no idea how to suffer. I see them training and just
any examples you can mention?
No. But some of them are not some of them are at the front of championships, so they're obviously mentally tough enough and capable of riding a motorbike, but they don't know how to suffer.
Right, okay.
I'd love to get some of them to be able to suffer like me.
Excellent.
But yeah, we'll see.
Fantastic. Well, look, Cal, we hope you don't have to suffer too much in the last 5 races with Ducati, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Appreciate it.
All right, cheers.
Well, Aragon may be one of the newer venues on the MotoGP calendar, but there's actually a rich heritage of motorsport in this part of the world. Carmelo Ezpeleta knows that very well indeed, and Jorge Lorenzo is about to find out as they make their way from MotorLand here to the Alcañiz street circuit. So away they go, modern day BMW MotoGP safety car driven by Carlos Ezpeleta, and the classic 1985 Alfa Romeo 155 race car driven by Jorge Lorenzo, with Carmelo Ezpeleta alongside him. Once they arrived in Alcañiz, it was all set for a few laps of the 3.9 kilometre Guadalupe road circuit, which is now celebrating its 50th anniversary. The roads are packed out and the kids have been allowed the morning off school. Disaster though, that was the Alfa emptying the contents of its radiator. I was a little bit nervous it might not last for long after that, and it didn't. So that left us with the slightly amusing spectacle of a Lorenzo Ezpeleta flag to flag, quickly vacating to a slightly less racy Fiat. Jorge, what an experience that was, a huge crowd as well.
I feel very proud to be with Carmelo and to make some run in the old track of Aragon. He told me that he raced in the 70s, so it's nice to have this kind of cars.
How was it for you to return to the circuit?
Well, I was racing here in 71, 72 and 73 with the R8 Cup, and this was an incredible experience. The atmosphere here always has been incredible.
Well, you might be wondering what we're doing here in turn 2 on a damp track, but very, very significant for race day, especially in MotoGP and a man called Marc Marquez. But to understand the whole story, let's start first of all with Moto3. The race start was delayed because of foggy conditions. Now, it had rained quite heavily overnight and in the mornings. There wasn't any more rain, but the riders just basically couldn't see, so that's why the warm-ups were delayed and the race was a bit later. Now, by the time it was race day, a dry line had formed, so on the Moto3 grid, frantically thinking, which tyre choice can they use? Now, the majority of the grid had switched to slick tyres. We only had Luca Grunwald and Nicky Ayo go with the wet option tyres. Now, from the start, it was a great getaway from Kent Miller and Bastianini. Grunwald, who had opted for the wet tyres, unfortunately crashed in turn 1 but managed to remount. Alex Marquez soon fought up to be with the leaders, and he was battling with Jack Miller in the final turn, both on a dry line but very, very tight, and ultimately they came together, resulting in a crash for the Australian. He was unhurt, managed to rejoin, tried to salvage some points but unfortunately wasn't able to in the end. Now, with the conditions, you just couldn't get off the racing line. I mean, numerous riders being caught out by the conditions, like Miguel Oliveira and John McPhee, unfortunately crashing out. Local favourite Alex Rins, he led for a bit before a mistake, with Czech rider Jakub Kornpart also leading for a little part of the race. But in the end, it was a battle between Marquez, Romano Fenati and Danny Kent, with Fenati timing his pass to perfection to take the win ahead of Marquez and Danny Kent. And then came Moto2. Now, by the time the Moto2 grid lined up, there were hardly any damp patches. You still couldn't go offline, you still couldn't get really onto the curb or especially off onto the Astro turf. But where there was still a bit of wet was on the starting grid. All the guys lining up on the left-hand side had to start in the wet. Now, of course, everyone had slick tyres. Jonas Folger was one of these guys, and maybe a little bit too eager to make up for it, had an unfortunate jump start. Now, at the front, it was Kallio who got away best. But very soon, Maverick Vinales, the pole man, got past the Finn. Then Kallio's day got even worse. Tito Rabat got past him, Dominic Egerter as well as Johan Zarco. Then it was Rabat versus Zarco for second place. Rabat looking very, very strong though, managing to get rid of Johan Zarco. Then Tom Luthi, he was having an excellent race. He then ended up fighting with Zarco for third place in the end. Vinales pulling out quite a dominant lead ahead of Tito Rabat, who ultimately finished second behind Vinales. And finally, right in the end, it was Zarco who managed to prevail over Tom Luthi to finish third. And then it was time for MotoGP. The track almost completely dried out, even more so than in Moto2, but the runoff areas were still wet. Now, everyone started with slick tyres, but the wet bikes were prepared in pit lane. Now, it was a great start from Andrea Iannone, with the Repsol Hondas battling behind straight away for second, but unlucky for Iannone. He had a big crash, again getting onto this wet area, then onto the grass. He had to let go of the bike and was very, very lucky to walk away unscathed. Now, the Yamahas, which had looked off the pace all weekend, had a surprising upturn in speed, with Lorenzo splitting the Hondas fairly early on. Then it was disaster for Valentino Rossi. Avoiding Pedrosa, he also ran onto a wet part of the track and crashed and was briefly knocked unconscious. Lorenzo then took on the Yamaha charge himself, taking the lead from Marquez. And around the halfway point, some spots of rain did appear, and bike swaps were allowed. The white flag came out for the so-called flag to flags. But no one came in though, with just a little bit of drizzle, and it was the Repsol pair then that took the lead at one point, battling for first. Then, about 5 laps from the end, the rain came. Aleix Espargaro, one of the first guys to swap bike, and Lorenzo a lap later, but to most people's surprise, the Honda stayed out. That gamble didn't pay off. First, Danny, then Marc, both going down with slick tyres in wet conditions. And in the end, the guys that kept their nerve for the podium were Jorge Lorenzo, absolutely controlled lead. Behind him, Aleix Espargaro having timed his bike shot to perfection. And our guest on After the Flag, Cal Crutchlow, also great timing and great confidence with his GP14 in the wet.
Well, I've had to sit down after that, Dylan. What an unbelievable sequence of events here then at MotorLand Aragon this afternoon. You could not have scripted that, could you, in a million years? And here's what it does then for the World Championship, 14 rounds into the season with 4 to go. Unsurprisingly, Marc Marquez still leads the way, and unbelievably, he extended the lead today, up from 74 to 75 points. Valentino Rossi just 3 behind Dani Pedrosa in that battle for second, but Jorge Lorenzo only 15 behind second place now, and still 4th overall. And what a great performance as well from Aleix Espargaro on the podium here this afternoon. Well, that's it for a while then now for us with After the Flag, the triple header up next of Japan, Australia and Malaysia, and we'll be back after that Malaysian Grand Prix in the first week of October. In the meantime then, here at MotorLand Aragon, you know, June 1949, the first ever World Championship event, the TT on the Isle of Man, Harold Daniel won that one. This was the 800th race and really was one of the very most special, wasn't it? See you in a couple of weeks' time.